Dr. Susan Carter wiped the sweat from her forehead as she carefully brushed away centuries of dust from the alien tablet. The dim lights of the underground chamber cast long shadows across the walls of what had once been a mighty archive of the Zanari civilization. This was her fourth expedition to the ruins, but something about today felt different. The markings on this tablet were unlike anything she had seen before. While most Zanari texts dealt with trade routes or cultural records, these symbols carried a sense of urgency. As she continued cleaning the surface, her hands began to shake. "Hey Frank, bring the translation matrix over here," she called to her assistant. Frank Miller, a young researcher with bright eyes and boundless enthusiasm, hurried over with their scanning equipment. "What did you find, Dr. Carter?" he asked, setting up the device. "I'm not sure yet, but look at these markings. See how deep they're carved." The Zanari usually wrote with light strokes, but someone really wanted this message to last. The scanner hummed to life, its blue light washing over the ancient text. Numbers and patterns flashed across the screen as the AI processed the symbols. Susan's heart nearly stopped when the translation appeared. "Warning to all who venture among the stars. Avoid the blue world in the system of Sol. They guard a greater nightmare than our people could ever imagine. We learned this truth too late." Frank leaned closer to the screen. "That can't be right. They're talking about Earth." Susan didn't answer. Instead, she moved quickly to another tablet she had found earlier that week. It was from a completely different section of the ruins, but something about the warning had triggered a memory. She scanned it too, and her face went pale. "Frank, look at this. It's the same message, word for word." But that wasn't what scared her most. 3 months ago, on a different planet 200 light-years away, she had found similar warnings in the ruins of the Makari, a species that went extinct 50,000 years before the Zanari even evolved. She pulled up the photos from that expedition on her tablet. Her hands trembled as she compared the translations. The words were identical. "This doesn't make sense," Frank said, looking between the screens. "These civilizations never met. They didn't even exist at the same time. How could they have the same warning about Earth?" Susan sat down on a fallen pillar, her mind racing. "We need to contact Earth Command right now." But even as she reached for her communicator, another thought struck her. The Zanari and Makari weren't the only extinct civilizations they had studied. She quickly pulled up files from other dig sites across the galaxy. "Frank, help me check these translations. Look for anything mentioning Earth, Sol, or warnings." They worked through the night, scanning file after file. By morning, their discovery had become impossible to ignore. 3 different species, separated by millions of years and countless light years, had left the exact same warning about Earth. "Dr. Carter," Frank said quietly, "what do you think they were so afraid of?" Susan stared at the ancient walls around them. The Zanari had been an advanced civilization, capable of traveling between stars. Yet something about Earth had terrified them enough to carve these warnings into stone. "I don't know," she replied, "but I think we need to find out why these species went extinct right after discovering Earth. And more importantly," she paused, looking at the warnings again, "what exactly are we guarding?" She sent an urgent message to Earth Command, marking it with the highest priority. As she waited for a response, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something far bigger than a simple archaeological discovery. The warnings were clear. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a guard post, and somewhere on their blue world, something ancient and terrible was being kept contained. Something that had frightened entire civilizations into extinction. Susan looked at the stone tablets one last time before packing up their equipment. They had come searching for answers about extinct alien species. Instead, they had found a chilling question about their own world. What kind of nightmare could be so terrible that it needed humanity as its guards? Commander Peter Walsh stood before the holographic display, studying the faces of his newly assembled team. After Dr. Carter's discovery, Earth Command had moved quickly, gathering experts from various fields to investigate the warnings. "Let's review what we know," he said, pulling up images of the alien tablets. 3 extinct civilizations left identical warnings about Earth. Dr. Lisa Morgan, what have you found in your linguistic analysis? Dr. Morgan adjusted her glasses and stepped forward. The linguist had spent the last week comparing the different alien languages. The similarities are impossible to ignore, Commander. Despite having completely different language structures, they all chose the exact same words to describe Earth. It's as if something forced them to write these warnings in a specific way. Kevin Howard, the team's xenobiologist, raised his hand. I've been studying the biological records we have of these species. Each civilization vanished within 5 years of discovering Earth. No signs of war, disease, or natural disaster. They just stopped existing. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander Walsh pulled up a new set of images showing star charts and navigation data. We'd found 14 more warnings since Dr. Carter's discovery, all from different extinct species, all saying the same thing. Dr. Morgan walked closer to the display. Look at these dates. The oldest warning we found is from 2.5 billion years ago. The most recent was carved just 10,000 years ago. That's a pattern spanning longer than most life has existed on Earth. But that's what doesn't make sense, Kevin added, pulling up his own data. According to everything we know, humans evolved on Earth. We have the fossil records, the DNA evidence. How can we be guards if we're native to the planet? Commander Walsh pressed a button, and a new image appeared, a strange symbol found repeated in all the alien warnings. Maybe we're not as native as we think. Dr. Morgan, tell them what you found about this marking. It appears in every warning, she explained. At first we thought it was just decoration, but I ran it through our deepest archaeological databases. This exact symbol has been found in human ruins too, dating back to our earliest civilizations. The Sumerians called it the Mark of the Watchers. Peter walked around the table, looking at each team member. Something put us here. Something made us into what we are. And whatever we're guarding, those other civilizations found out about it and paid the price. A young researcher named Amy Peters spoke up from the back of the room. I've been analyzing human behavior patterns compared to other known species. Our aggressive nature, our constant drive to advance technology, our ability to adapt to almost any situation. It's like we were designed to be perfect guards. But guards for what? Kevin asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Commander Walsh brought up one final image, a deep space scan of Earth's core. Whatever it is, it's down there. Our instruments show anomalies that shouldn't exist. The core of our planet isn't natural. How do we proceed? Dr. Morgan asked quietly. Carefully, Walsh replied. If we're right about this, everything we thought we knew about human history is wrong. And whatever these extinct races discovered about us was terrible enough to wipe them out completely. He looked at his team, seeing determination mixed with fear in their eyes. We need to understand what we're guarding. But we also need to figure out why knowing the truth was so dangerous that it killed entire civilizations. As the meeting ended, Commander Walsh stayed behind, staring at the ancient warnings. 17 different species had discovered Earth's secret, and 17 species had vanished trying to understand it. Now his team was about to attempt the same thing. He just hoped they wouldn't meet the same fate. The investigation was officially underway, but one thing was already clear. Humanity's role in the universe was far stranger and more terrifying than anyone had imagined. They weren't just another species reaching for the stars. They were wardens of something so dangerous that even knowing about it could mean extinction. The research lab was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Dr. Lisa Morgan stared at her screen, her coffee long forgotten. After weeks of analyzing data, a pattern had emerged that changed everything they thought they knew about human history. You need to see this, she called to Kevin Howard, who was working late again. I've mapped out the timeline of each civilization's extinction. Kevin walked over, his eyes tired but curious. On the screen, a series of dots marked different alien species' first contact with Earth, followed by their disappearance. "Look at the pattern," Lisa said, pointing to the timeline. Each civilization reached the same level of technology before finding Earth. They all developed faster than light travel, then discovered our solar system, and then they vanished, Kevin finished, leaning closer to the screen. But what's this gap here? Lisa zoomed in on a period roughly 300,000 years ago. That's when humans suddenly appeared. Not evolved. Appeared. Our DNA shows signs of engineering that we've been missing all along. Commander Walsh entered the lab, carrying new data files. "You found something." "Yes," Lisa said, turning to face him. "We were looking at human evolution all wrong. We didn't slowly develop from earlier species. Something placed us here, fully formed, with exactly the traits needed to be guardians." Kevin pulled up his biological studies. "She's right. Look at human aggression levels, our ability to use tools, our pack-bonding instincts. Everything that makes us human also makes us perfect prison guards." Walsh sat down heavily in a nearby chair. "Show me the evidence." Lisa played a sequence of images showing human DNA compared to other Earth species. "Our genetic code has patterns that don't match anything else on Earth. It's like someone took the best traits from dozens of species and created something new." "But why?" Walsh asked. "Why go to all this trouble?" Amy Peters rushed into the lab, holding her tablet. "I think I found the answer. Look at these deep scans of the planet." She connected her tablet to the main screen, showing layers of Earth's structure. "There are patterns in the core that can't be natural. They're too regular, too precise." The team gathered around the display. Below the Earth's crust, strange geometric shapes appeared in the scan data. They formed patterns that looked almost like circuitry, running through the mantle and into the core. "Earth isn't just a planet," Amy said quietly. "It's a machine, a prison. And we're the guards." Kevin brought up more data. "That explains why those civilizations disappeared. They must have discovered what's down there and tried to interfere. Whatever's being contained doesn't want to stay contained." "Look at these energy readings," Lisa added, pointing to new patterns in the data. "They spike every time humanity faces a major crisis. It's like something is pushing us to become stronger, better guardians." Walsh studied the information in silence. Finally, he spoke. "So we were engineered by some ancient race to guard a prison that's built into the planet itself. And whatever's inside is so dangerous that just knowing about it destroyed 17 different civilizations." "But we're different," Amy said. "We were made for this. The question is, what happens now that we know the truth?" Lisa pulled up the original warnings again. "Maybe that's why the other species left these messages. They weren't just warnings about Earth. They were warnings about what happens when you discover the truth." "We need to go deeper," Walsh decided. "If we're the guards, we need to know what we're guarding. Set up deep-sea exploration teams. Whatever this prison is, there must be a way to access it." As the team began making preparations, Lisa looked again at the alien warnings. Each civilization had discovered this truth and paid the ultimate price. But humans were different. They were created for this purpose. The only question was whether that would be enough to protect them from whatever nightmare lay at the heart of their world. The pattern was clear now. Earth wasn't their home. It was their post, and something ancient and terrible was their prisoner. The real question was, were they really its guards, or just another part of its cage? Chief Engineer Amanda Bell stood in the deep-sea exploration vessel, watching the dark waters outside the reinforced windows. At 20,000 feet below the Pacific Ocean, the pressure was intense, but something even more incredible waited below. "Summers picking up the structure," her pilot, John Wells, reported. "It's massive. Looks like it covers several miles of the ocean floor." Through the vessel's lights, they could see the edge of something that shouldn't exist. Geometric patterns covered what looked like an ancient facility, its metal walls untouched by rust or age, despite being billions of years old. All teams, report in, Amanda called over the radio. Team 2 in position, came Dr. Morgan's voice. We found what looks like an entrance on the eastern side. Team 3 here, Kevin Howard added. The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever this place is, it's still running. Amanda guided their vessel closer to the structure. Their lights revealed symbols carved into the walls, the same ones they'd found in the alien mornings. But here, they were part of what looked like a control panel. I'm taking us in, John said, carefully maneuvering toward what appeared to be a docking port. Look at that. It's compatible with our vessel, almost like it was designed for us. The docking procedure went smoothly, too smoothly for something built before humans existed. As they secured the connection, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that they were expected. Suits on, she ordered her team. We're going in. They entered the facility through an airlock that seemed to recognize their presence. Inside, lights activated automatically, revealing corridors that stretched into darkness. The air is breathable, reported Sam Parker, their environmental specialist. The facility is maintaining itself. Amanda led the way, following the patterns of lights that activated ahead of them. It's like it's showing us where to go. They reached a central chamber where screens came to life, displaying data in a language that shouldn't have made sense, but somehow did. This is impossible. Dr. Morgan's voice came over the radio. I can read this. It's like the information is being fed directly into my mind. Same here, Amanda said, staring at the screens. It's a monitoring station. It's been watching. Something at the planet's core. The screens showed layer after layer of Earth's structure, focusing on patterns of energy that flowed through the planet like blood through veins. At the center, something pulsed with terrible power. Look at these readings, Sam said, checking his instruments. The facility is part of a larger network. There are stations like this all around the planet, all feeding power into some kind of containment system. A new screen activated, showing what looked like historical records. Amanda watched in horror as images played out, entire galaxies being consumed by something dark and immense, ancient civilizations fighting a losing battle against it, and finally, a desperate plan to trap it. They built this prison inside a planet, she whispered. They created Earth around it, built these facilities to maintain the containment, and then they created us to guard it, John finished. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights pulsed as new data flooded the screens. What's happening? Commander Walsh demanded over the radio. Amanda's hands flew over the control panels, reading the ancient data. The system is responding to our presence. It's activating something. Protocols we were meant to find. The screens showed new information, details about humanity's true purpose, the mechanics of the prison they guarded, and warnings about what would happen if the containment ever failed. My God, Amanda breathed, reading the data. We're not just guards. We're the last line of defense. If whatever's down there ever gets out. The facility rumbled around them, ancient machinery coming to life after billions of years of waiting. They had found the monitoring station, but this was just the beginning. Now they had to learn how to use it, before whatever they were guarding realized its jailers had finally come home. Dr. Paul Matthews felt his heart race as their deep-sea vessel approached the massive structure they had discovered beneath the ancient monitoring station. After 3 days of following energy signals, they had found something that defied explanation. All teams in position, he said into his radio. Are you seeing this? The structure rose from the ocean floor like a metal mountain, its surface covered in symbols that glowed with their own light. But it wasn't the size that made Paul's hands shake. It was what their instruments were telling them about what lay inside. Energy readings are stable, Amanda Bell reported from the monitoring station above. The containment field is still holding after all this time. Through the vessel's windows, Hall could see where the structure disappeared into the ocean floor. According to their scans, it continued down through the Earth's crust, stretching all the way to the core. Beginning final approach, said Linda Chen, their pilot. "The entry point is just ahead." As they drew closer, a section of the wall seemed to recognize them. Panels slid apart, revealing an entrance that could only have been designed for human-made vessels. "We're going in," Paul announced, trying to keep his voice steady. "Remember, we're here to observe only. Don't touch anything unless absolutely necessary." The passageway led them deep into the structure. Through their vessel's windows, they could see massive machines humming with power, all focused inward, all containing something at the center. "Dr. Matthews," Linda called out, "look at these readings, the energy signature. It's alive." Paul stared at the data scrolling across his screen. The thing they were containing wasn't just powerful, it was conscious and ancient, older than the universe itself. "Command, are you seeing this?" he asked. "We see it," Commander Walsh replied, his voice tense. "The monitoring station's records are clear now. This entity existed before our universe. When reality formed, it sought everything as food." Through the vessel's cameras, they could see deeper into the structure, energy fields layered upon energy fields, all designed to hold something unimaginable. It consumed entire galaxies, Amanda added from the monitoring station. The ancient races fought it for millions of years before they found a way to trap it. They built Earth around it, turned an entire planet into a prison. Their vessel reached the final chamber. Through layers of containment fields, they could see it, a darkness that moved wrong, that hurt their eyes to look at, something that shouldn't exist in their reality. "The prison uses the Earth's core as a power source," Paul explained, reading the facility's data. "The planet's magnetic field, the movement of the plates, it's all part of the containment system, and we're the final safeguard." Linda pointed to new readings appearing on their screens. "Look at this. Our presence is affecting it. It knows we're here." The darkness seemed to shift, pressing against its bonds. Warning lights flashed throughout their vessel. "Pull back," Paul ordered. "Pull back now." As they retreated, the facility's defenses activated, adding new layers of containment, but they had seen enough to understand the truth. "Now we know why those other races went extinct," Paul said quietly as they headed back to the surface. "They found this place, saw what we were guarding, and it broke them. The knowledge that something like this existed was too much." "But we're different," Linda replied. "We were made for this. The nightmares, the wars, our endless drive to become stronger. It was all preparation." Paul looked one last time at the massive structure as it disappeared into the darkness. They had found the truth at the heart of their world. Earth wasn't just their home. It was a prison for something that threatened all of existence. And humanity hadn't evolved by chance. They were created to be warriors, guardians, and jailers. The only question was, now that they knew their true purpose, what would they do with this knowledge? Commander Walsh stood before the United Nations Security Council, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had to reveal. The chamber was silent as he showed them the footage from the deep-sea mission. "What you're seeing is the truth about our species," he said, as images of the ancient facility played on the screens. "We were engineered by the last surviving ancient race. Every trait that makes us human was carefully designed." Dr. Lisa Morgan stepped forward, pointing to genetic data. "Our aggressive nature, our adaptability, our constant drive to advance. These aren't flaws. They're features built into us by our creators. We were made to be the perfect prison guards." The room erupted with questions. Walsh raised his hand for silence. "The evidence is clear," he continued. "Earth is not just our home. It's a prison, built to contain something that nearly destroyed the universe, and we are its wardens." Amy Peters displayed new data from the monitoring station. "The containment system is incredibly complex. The planet's core, the magnetic field, even plate tectonics, it's all part of the prison. And somehow, deep in our DNA, we know how to maintain it." "But why us?" asked one of the council members. "Why create an entire species just to guard a prison?" Kevin Howard stepped up to answer. because nothing else worked. The ancient races tried AI systems, automated defenses, even their own people. But the prisoner found ways around them all. They needed something unpredictable, aggressive, and incredibly adaptable. They needed humans. The screen showed historical data recovered from the facility. Countless civilizations had tried to contain the entity, all failing until the creation of Earth and humanity. Our entire history makes sense now, Lisa added. Our wars, our conflicts, our constant push to improve our technology. It was all preparation, training for our real purpose. Walsh brought up new images, showing the darkness they had discovered beneath the ocean. This is what we guard. Something older than our universe, something that sees all reality as food. The ancient races barely managed to trap it, and they gave their lives to make sure it stayed trapped. The council members stared at the footage, some looking sick, others determined. What do we do with this information? One finally asked. We do what we were made to do, Walsh replied firmly. We guard it. We protect not just our world, but all of reality. That's why we were created with our particular traits, to be the perfect wardens. Dr. Morgan showed final readings from their instruments. The prison is stable. It's held for billions of years, and it will hold for billions more, but only if we maintain our role as guardians. Everything about us makes sense now, Amy added. Our violence, our curiosity, our drive to expand and explore. These aren't random traits. They're tools given to us by our creators. We're warriors bred to guard the greatest threat reality has ever known. The council chamber fell silent as the truth sank in. Humanity had always wondered about their purpose in the universe. Now they knew. They were the guardians, the wardens, the last line of defense against something unspeakable. We can never let this knowledge break us, Walsh said firmly. Those other races discovered the truth and couldn't handle it. But we're different. We were made for this. Every human instinct, every trait that makes us who we are. It's all part of our design as guardians. As the council began discussing their next steps, Walsh looked at the images of the ancient prison once more. Humanity had finally discovered their true purpose. They weren't just another species reaching for the stars. They were wardens of reality itself, guarding a nightmare that could never be allowed to wake. And somehow, deep in their engineered DNA, they had always known it. Director Grace Martinez stood at the window of the space station, watching as the alien fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. After humanity's discovery of their true purpose, it had taken less than a month for other civilizations to arrive. They're hailing us, said John Wells, now promoted to Chief of Communications. All 27 species want to speak at once. Grace turned from the window. The command center was filled with Earth's leaders, all waiting to hear what the aliens would say. They didn't have to wait long. The main screen lit up with faces of different alien species. Their message was simple and terrible. Earth had to be destroyed. The risk was too great. We know what you guard, the alien leader said, its words translated perfectly. Your prison holds the Great Devourer. As long as it exists, there's a chance it could escape. We cannot take that risk. Grace stepped forward. If you destroy Earth, you'll break the containment. Everything we guard will be released. Better to face it now, with our combined forces, another alien responded, then wait for it to break free on its own. The room fell silent. Humanity faced an impossible choice. Fight to protect their world and their ancient duty, or step aside and let the aliens attempt what the ancient races had failed to do. Amanda Bell's voice came through from the deep-sea facility. Director, the prisoner is responding to their presence. The containment fields are fluctuating. You see, Grace said to the aliens, it knows you're here. It wants you to try. Every civilization that discovered this secret either ran away or died trying to destroy it. But we were made for this purpose. She showed them the data from the monitoring station. Look at these readings. The containment has held for billions of years because of us. We're not just guards. We're part of the prison itself. The aliens studied the data. Some looked shocked, others frightened. "But how can we trust you?" one asked. "How do we know you won't fail?" "Because failing isn't in our nature," Grace replied. "Everything that makes us human, our aggression, our determination, our will to survive, it was engineered into us by the ancient races. We're not just guarding this prison. We're living weapons designed to keep it secure." New data flashed across the screens. The prisoner was becoming more active, responding to the tension above. "You have a choice," Grace said to the alien fleet. "You can try to destroy us and risk freeing something that could end all reality. Or you can trust that the ancient races knew what they were doing when they created us as guardians." Hours passed as the aliens debated. The prisoner stirred in its ancient cage, the containment fields humming with power. Finally, the alien leaders spoke again. "We will watch," they said. "We will monitor. But we will trust in the ancient race's design. Humanity was made for this purpose. The prison is yours to guard." As the alien fleet withdrew, Grace looked around at her fellow humans. They had faced their first test as knowing guardians, and they had passed. "Send word to all stations," she ordered. "Continue monitoring the containment. This is what we were made for. This is our purpose." Deep below the Pacific Ocean, the ancient facility hummed with power. The prisoner remained secure in its cage, surrounded by layers of technology and one specially engineered species that would never stop guarding it. Humanity had discovered their true purpose, faced their first challenge, and chosen to embrace their role as guardians of reality itself. They were the wardens, the protectors, the final line of defense against a nightmare that could never be allowed to wake. And they would never stop watching. The end.